I am very excited to invite Harpo, who is the outgoing executive director of 5X, an advocate for representation and resources in the South Asian music and arts landscape, co-chair of the inaugural Juno South Asian Music Committee, and most recently, this one I didn't know, Harpo was historically appointed as the first Punjabi woman to hold a role as the board of directors for BC's Crown Corp, PAVCO, which oversees two of the province's largest venues, the Vancouver Convention Centre and BC Place. Welcome to ThinkSpace.
Oh my God, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Of course. Can you just give me that sauce that you were giving me before about ThinkSpace? Because I think we all need it.
100%. This is a manifestation because when I was younger and newer in my kind of creative career, and then also just in the Vancouver arts and culture scene, ThinkSpace is a podcast that I looked up to as an inspiration for something that I wanted to create, but also something that I wanted to be a part of and be on. And it's one of those things where you sort of think about something and it becomes a seed that's planted in the world. And then whenever it's time and ready, it germinates and comes to life. So I was driving here, talking to a friend, and she was like, "What podcast are you going to be on?" And I was like, ThinkSpace. And you know what? This is the story. So I can't, it just happened. I didn't even think about it.
That makes my day. Honestly, there are conversations on there that we've had that I to this day think about. Mm-hmm. There was this man, David Katz, and he talks about, he lost his daughter when she was 13, I think, or I don't know, she was very young. And he talks about, he's like, yo, am I going to be the guy who lost his daughter, or am I going to be the guy who knew what it means to love that much?
Yeah.
And I think about that man all the time. Right. And I just that's essentially, I feel what we always wanted to cultivate with this podcast is how do we create conversations where people can be open and honest and just be vulnerable, but then also share their wins and have it be celebrated. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I remember learning so much about people in Vancouver who were up to things and were doing things that were really different and unique. I didn't really know another podcast at the time that I resonated with, to be honest. Mm-hmm. Also, it was a time that podcasting was fairly new, I would say.
Trendsetters.
Right? So yeah, I remember learning so much about people, and that's kind of also where I got to learn about self-hire too. So full circle.
So for anyone, so we got the opportunity this year to go and activate at 5X. And I was telling Bav, I was like, I personally, so I grew up in New West. I grew up in a very Caucasian space. A lot of the brown people around me were my cousins. Older I got, I went to Kwantlen for 6 months, had a culture shock. I had never seen that many brown people if I wasn't at a wedding. Yeah. And, as time went on, I've always experienced, I feel South Asian culture kind of from the outside, if that makes sense. And when I was at 5X this year, I was telling Bav, I was like, I have never been in a South Asian space where there's so much there's no friction. Mm-hmm. There's just isness. There's just there's conversation, there's culture, there's art, there's just people who want to be together and celebrate each other. But for anybody who doesn't know what 5X is, can you tell us?
Yes. So, technically, it's an arts organization. VIBC, Vancouver International Bhangra Celebration, is the organization's name. VIBC's flagship, brand is 5X. And we put on an annual music and art festival every year. It happens in June. It's usually multi-day, multi-venue. But throughout the year, we do a lot of other stuff as well. So we've done a lot of supporting emerging artists. There's a lot of advocacy work that we do. 5X is incredibly important in the larger arts and culture sector, where we do talk about what it means to create resources and opportunities for BIPOC artists, what it means to be an emerging artist and how you get from emerging to established. So there's a lot that we do, but beyond the technicality of it, it's this incubator, this space where people who haven't grown up feeling connected with their culture, or maybe grew up in relationship with the culture in a way that felt foreign to them or didn't feel safe for them, can come and actually experience that together. So to me, it's always felt like a bit of a home where you can go and you can be curious about belonging, you can explore belonging, you can problematize belonging. So that's what 5X really is. It's what you make of it and your experience with it beyond its like arts and culture programming and offerings.
Yeah. I love how you brought up belonging there, because I know just like from personal conversations with you, like belonging has been something that's always been an interest of yours, as well as like a personal like Phoenix opportunity for you.
Yeah.
So like how did you find belonging in the business space? Like, because you had a title there. You're very young. You have a lot of responsibility, right? So how did you find belonging in this community, and how did you create and cultivate belonging for others in this community?
I think I did it mostly by being just myself, like truly being my authentic self. So yes, I was really young. I was 27 when I became the executive director. And at that time, I was one of the youngest EDs of an event, an organization like that in the country. And I leaned into that. I leaned into the newness. I leaned into the not knowingness, but I also leaned into the opportunity of it. So I just was my authentic self the entire time. And I'm sure we'll get into this because when we're both talking, there's no way that we can't touch it. But I have a very deep spiritual practice that allowed me to continue to foster belonging within myself. And so I was able to really lean into that. And that was like the starting place for me to experience belonging. And I think curiosity has always really pushed the belonging for me. So I was able to go out and find people who were also exploring belonging, who were also curious about it. So a lot of my friends are people who are in the business of belonging.
And what is belonging? For anyone who's like, yeah, okay, I know what belonging is, but what is belonging?
Such a good question. I think it's feeling like you are, like you can authentically be accepted for who you are. You don't have to change who you are. I think sometimes the definition of belonging in juxtaposition with fitting in is like a good example. So this is something I learned from Brene Brown, which is like she's an emotions researcher. Fitting in is when you change who you are to find a sense of like resonance in a group, right? Where you're like, okay, I'm gonna like the same music, I'm gonna wear the same clothes, and then I'll fit in, and I'll feel like I'm supposed to be here.
I'm like a part of it.
I'm a part of it.
Yeah.
Belonging is I'm gonna show up as my authentic self into this, like space, into this community, in this organization, in this company, and then I am going to be able to resonate with people who like can come together and form like a sense of community. For me, belonging feels like home, where you can actually just like exhale and be who you are and not have to put on different personalities and personas to try and feel like you're supposed to be there, like where you're supposed, like like it's okay for me to be here.
And why? Okay, so why is that particularly a radical act from the lens of a South Asian woman?
So my parents are immigrants to this country. My parents are born and raised in Punjab, which is like a region in India. And they both immigrated over first my dad came in, I think like the early 90s. And then my mom came in like mid to late 90s. And when they came here, they came with this idea and the hope that they were going to have a better life and that they were going to lay roots for like their children and then the next generations to come. They left their country because they felt that maybe there wasn't enough opportunity to grow, expand, to be who they are. So when they came to this country that promised that to them, I think what they realized when they first got here is like that might not actually be true. There are a lot of systems and like kinds of isms that they had no idea existed when they were living in that country. They didn't know what racism was. They didn't know what economic insecurity was. They didn't know what it means to be an immigrant who's had to like pick up and come to a different place. So they started to live their lives in survival mode, right? So they were like, okay, we have to do everything that we can to be alive, to make money, to feed our children. And then if we have time and space to have joy, to like participate in love, to be creative, right?
Yeah.
To be able to connect with other people. So why belonging is so radical is because a lot of times when people like my parents and then their children are in this context, we're here to fulfill a purpose, right? Immigration fulfills a purpose. You come and you're like doing labor. You're meant to live your life in survival mode. Why belonging becomes so important is because when you feel like you truly belong in a place, you can start to live your life outside of survival mode, which is your God-given inherent right, right? So that's why it's so radical for me as a South Asian woman to like prioritize and center belonging in everything that I do, because I am meant to be here. It doesn't matter how I got here. I am meant to be here. Yes, it becomes riddled in like understanding structural issues and systemic issues. I mean, like we are on stolen land, but I have a right to be here and to feel safe here. So safety and belonging go hand in hand too.
100%. Yeah. Okay. So this is the mind frame that everybody is coming from, or everybody's, let's say, a lot of ours, not everybody's, but a lot of our families are coming from, that we're coming from. You know, just a note on that. She's not everybody's favorite, but Superwoman, she had a great YouTube video about talking about her family. And she was just like, she's like, it took me so long to realize that like my parents acted the way that they acted because they needed to fit in. If they did not fit in with the community that was here, that was Indian, we wouldn't fit in at all. And we would be even more unsafe, right? And so it's like then being in your position, you're now a leader for these people who are looking to belong, who are looking for spaces to expand themselves, sit in a seat, take a look, right? So it's like, as you're leading people in that space, like what are common things that you would find with people who are in that space, like event goers?
I think you have to I think a lot of people felt that they had to turn parts of themselves off or like shut parts of themselves off, pick and choose who they had to be. I work in the music industry mostly. I mean, I say arts and culture, but it's heavily music driven. And so I feel that a lot of people had to pick and choose what kinds of music they could openly say they loved and enjoyed, artists that they listened to, and then also experience in a public setting. So like a lot of times people are turning parts of themselves off. And so they're not showing up in their totality. They're not showing up in their authenticity. And that's not really an integrous way to live your life.
Do you think it's conscious?
Not always. I think it starts off subconscious when you're a child. Like I'll give you my example. When I was in elementary school, my mom would like send me roti for lunch. And I used to feel so embarrassed by it. And I was like, oh, Indian food is like not cool. It's not good. It's smelly. It's this and that. For a long time, that was like subconscious. And then eventually it's when I was like, oh, like I am like actively distancing myself from something that's incredibly cultural and like intrinsic to who I am and to my family. I still till this day barely eat Indian food. I just like don't resonate with it because to me, like I felt that I had to police that part of myself and part of my identity growing up to be accepted. Because, you know, in like the early 2000s, it was like not cool to be brown.
No, I know. And you know, it's like, as you're saying that, a part of me, there's like two parts of me that are active. Yeah. One part of me is like, how many times are we going to have this conversation and when is it going to get taxed? Like that's a producer part of me. And the reason I say that is because this is our lived experience and it'll never be quote unquote taxed for us. This is our living experience. It's so many people's living experience. And then I have such a different experience in the sense of, I remember I met this guy, the brown guy from White Rock. And I was living in Victoria at the time. And the way he talked about being brown, he despised it.
Yeah.
And something in my body, and I never despised being brown. I had a lot of bad associated feelings with my culture, right? I never had an issue with being brown. And then it was this moment where I was like, my whole body reacted where I was like, I never want to be like this. Yeah. There are issues with the way that sometimes we move, the way that we think, the way that we are like feel about each other, sure. But I never want to like roam this earth like dissatisfied with the vessel that I'm in, with the fact that I came here with this culture. You know what I mean? So because it's like it's such a lack of ownership of who you are, right?
Yeah, and there's so many reasons for that. I mean, like I feel quite sad for this person that they feel so disconnected from like who they actually are, that's their experience. And I think like what you've said about, you know, there's so many things that are a little bit difficult in our culture. That's like every culture, right?
Exactly.
Like even when you're white, like, you know, there's so much that comes with being a white person that is incredibly problematic. But I find also that there's like a lot more space granted because like race and racism and like racialization is like, it happens to colored people, right? So then like we become the focus. And so there's like a little bit more there. It doesn't like, when you think about race or racism, you don't think about like white, you think about like BIPOC people, right? And obviously there's intricacies in that too when you're Indigenous, when you're Black.
Yeah.
But I think like there's just not enough freedom, I think, afforded to like us as brown people to like really tease those things apart. A lot of it can be like outside of the community facing onto the community. And then I think that like we're not able to actually regulate our own issues internally, which is part of like so much of the work that I do actually is like a very intra-community focus. Everything that I do is very by us, for us. That's part of the slogan for the organization as well that, you know, I have spent several years leading. But even in my own little side quests, I'm like, okay, like I'm going to have a really constructive, open conversation about me as a brown woman and my experiences as a brown woman with the community and the outside world, because I want us to do better and be better, and I want to feel better.
Well, yeah, that's kind of like where my curiosity now is going, is like, okay, being this young person who is very driven, who is around a lot of different types of people. I'll never forget going to the Leo Awards and when you're in a space like that, like in the director's category, there's not a lot of people of color, right? And there's definitely not a lot of women. And so it was very weird for me to network in that space. Right. And then when you look at the people of color or you look at the women, they're all the actors. And so you're like, oh, okay, like the people who actually have money decisions to make here.
Yeah, and power.
Are one type of way. Yeah. And I remember sitting there feeling that like, it was like, it was so great. I'm like, oh my God, this is so amazing. But then I was just like having this internal conversation, you know? But anyways, like my curiosity goes to, you are this person, you are a trailblazer, you are doing the work, but how is it leading yourself when you are essentially under the scrutiny of like, you are the one brown woman who is now on this board of directors, who is leading this organization, who's going to the Junos, who's doing all these things and like building categories, right? Like what stressors or like how does that impact you?
I mean, I spent so many months earlier this year so burnt out because I felt that the weight of the entire world, that particular world, was on my shoulders. And part of it is obviously like, yes, I'm the only one and I'm like the only one like on the roster. So I have to show up and I have to represent and all that kind of stuff. But so much of it is internal as well. It's like, the stakes are just so much higher, right? Like if I mess up, if I do something that's wrong, it's going to reflect so poorly on all of us, right? And I think that like the stress of that, the pressure of that is crippling. It's really hard. And then you add like other intersections of like, okay, I'm a woman, I'm young, and I'm Punjabi. And that also comes loaded with so many things because, you know, it's different. Like there's so many nuances in the different kinds of South Asians that you are. So there's just so much pressure. And I spent so much time this year feeling really, really tired and overworking myself because I was like, I have to do this and I have to do it today. I have to do it tomorrow. It came a lot at the expense of my own well-being, my own wellness, my own relationships, which is part of why I decided that like I had to change. I had to transition out of that. I had to like make a decision to live my life in a different way because that's not healthy. And it's also not going to do anything for the community either. Like if I'm not well and I can't show up for my community, that's bad for the community.
Yeah, I was going to say like, how did you reconcile that? Because in so many ways, it must feel so glorious, right? And then in other ways, it's a lot of pressure. Yeah. And if you look at it in a true way, you are not responsible for an entire group of people.
Well, I had no idea.
You know?
I was like, oh, that's news to me. Forgot. Like, I can't. And also, like, it doesn't allow for any nuance. Like, then like, that's not real representation either, because now you're like, oh, okay, like my way is the only way, when really that's not true either. So you actually do box yourself and your community up. You're doing a disservice to your community by not allowing for other experiences and people to be involved.
Yeah. So the title of director, I remember a season where you were really like starting to fit into it.
Yeah.
And now you're transitioning out of it.
Uh-huh.
So talk to me about the shift, what's going on, like from an emotional, spiritual place of how did you come to this conclusion, and how do you feel making this decision?
So for context, I resigned from the position of executive director at 5X. I have been at the organization 5 years, and I felt that, it's time for something new. I'm not somebody who likes to stay within something for longer than it's necessary, to be honest. And it took me so much. Like, I had so much resistance when I was arriving at the decision. Because of that, I was like, I'm going to let my community down. I'm going to let the organization down. Like, I don't even know what my life is like when I'm not in this position. And that was like a huge red flag for me. I was like, oh, I have started to make an identity out of this particular role, and I'm hiding behind it. So I stopped having fun. Like, directorship actually prevented me from like having fun. I started to take less risks. Being in leadership roles outside of that also forced me to be a lot more intentional about like how I was showing up in the world, like in real life and online. So I was starting to notice that I was starting to use this to like hide a little bit.
Can you go a little further into like intentional for how I show up in the outside world?
I was always moving through the world everywhere I went as the executive director of 5X. I very seldom started to show up as Harpo.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really was like not Harpo everywhere I went. So much so that like, even if I was like sending a text message to somebody, people would be like, haha, you're like always working. And I'm like, oh yeah, like, sorry, this is just my communication style. I know we're breaking up, but I'm going to talk to you like I'm a director, So I just wasn't,
because there's a part of you have to turn off, right? And it's like, it's beautiful because it works in certain rooms. In other rooms, it really robs you.
Yes, and spiritually, what it was doing for me was I was so in my masculine energy. I just like, there was very little softness left to me. I felt like very focused, in like a very masculine way, which is fine because it was required, right? It was
Seasons.
It was the season.
Yeah.
But then I was like, okay, now it's starting to go a bit overboard. So yeah, I feel like I wasn't showing up to like have fun anymore in life. There was very little pleasure in my life, very little leisure. I was working all the time. Everything had to come back to the one thing. I was like, I moved out in all of this, and it really, like, I was so locked in, and I did a lot professionally, but like I would go weeks without seeing my parents or talking to my friends or doing anything fun. So it was quite expensive in many ways. Yeah. And then arriving at the decision was the hardest. But as soon as I made the decision, there was like this like gigantic exhale. And it was like, this is right. This is so right. You have not rested ever. Like I don't remember the last time I genuinely rested. Not in a way where, it could feed my soul. I mean, more than just like a weekend. And I was like, okay, now we're gonna rest. Like before we do the next thing, which you're gonna do, and you're gonna be so good at it. It's gonna be perfect. It's gonna be aligned. I don't know what it is, but whatever it is, you're gonna kill it. But we have to rest before we do it.
So what does rest look like?
So for me, I mean, like the tangible definition of rest is any non-outcome based activity. But for me right now, what it looks like is softening into my feminine energy and feeling okay to be held by the earth, by time, by space, by my loved ones, and not making any decisions yet. Like I'm not making any decisions right now. I have so much uncertainty and abundance of opportunity around me right now. I'm in my free agent era, but I'm not making any decisions right now.
And how does that
to me,
feel?
It feels scary.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
I feel like a baby. I've been telling everybody I'm a baby right now.
Yeah.
And I have had to have multiple conversations with my loved ones to be like, hey, I feel like a boat that's anchored, but like the boat is like running off and going and doing the thing. And sometimes you're the anchor, sometimes I'm the anchor. And I'm really sorry, but I'm a baby. And so babies, they throw hissy fits, they cry, they need to be coddled, they need to be held and reminded that everything's okay. And that's the season that I'm in right now. And you might just need to show up in that way for me. Our friend Bov, she goes, she said this so many times. She goes, I'm not taking anything you say to me this year seriously. Straight
you
up.
need friends like that, yo.
Straight up. She's like,
100%.
I'm not taking anything you say seriously. And
Yeah.
I was like, bet. Thank you so much.
Yeah. You know what? I think you will never regret time off, just because the same way that you need time off, like, so that you know that you need time off, you will know that it's done.
Yeah.
You know, I was job after job after job. I got a job when I was 13, and I had worked and worked and worked and worked. And then I was at Shaw at the time, and I was doing doubles, and I was like, okay, I'm just going to stack cash, and then I'm going to quit. And I quit, and I painted.
Yeah.
I meditated. I did nothing. Jessica was my husband, basically, because she was like cooking the dinners.
Yeah.
But I needed that. You know what I mean? And it's like, it gives you this opportunity to just get I feel like in touch with the new version of yourself.
Yeah.
And when you say like the boat and the anchor and all this, when you've done big things, when I say big things, I mean big things for you.
Yeah.
You've accomplished mountains within yourself.
Yeah.
There is a void.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when we did the doc, it was like, this was my whole life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you get paid nothing, you know,
Yeah.
you put in all the work, and it almost robbed me so much spiritually that by the time I was done it, I was so grateful it was out in the world, but I also was the person who experienced it. I didn't just direct it, I lived it. And so I remember afterwards going for a drink with a friend, and he's just like, you know, you just did a big thing, you could chill. But I'm like, no, I can't.
I know. And that, like, the void that you mentioned is so real, because it's interesting. So much of why I made the decision to also resign and take some time is because I was like, I feel so lonely all the time. I'm in this like ivory tower, literally, physically, emotionally. And I'm pouring all this energy into this thing, and it's beautiful, and it's like growing and expanding, and it's lovely. But I feel lonely. And then now that I've made the decision and I have all this time, like we're chatting right at the end of July, and September, I have like a hard rule that I'm not doing anything in September.
What does that mean?
I will go on a vacation, and I will quote unquote like find myself, whatever that means. But I want to create the environment for me to experience beautiful, wild serendipity. And I want to go on a vacation that like really feels authentic and good and free flowing. But I am in like a decision, like I'm in like an analysis paralysis, because I'm like, where should I go? What should I do? And anytime I like start to create an itinerary, I'm so like physically and energetically repulsed by it.
Sounds like so much pressure.
I know. It's like, okay, now how do I like use my time off? Like, how do I over-engineer my rest? And that's not real rest. Over-engineering anything is not real rest.
How do I be the most productive with my rest?
I know. So I'm like, I'm like, should I go live in Toronto for September? Should I go to Costa Rica? Should I go to Hawaii? Should I go to New York? Should I just stay here? Should I go there? Should I go there? And so I don't know how to do it, Sue.
It's hard.
It's so hard.
I honestly, I won't sugarcoat it like it's easy, because I think there's people where it's a part of their essence, right?
Yeah.
Where being in that space is easy. That is flow. I'm on your boat where being in that space it's not that it's not my essence. It's just getting to that is a little against the grain for me.
Yeah.
I find it a little hard.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But you will know where to go when you know where to go.
Well, I was going to say, like, you know, it's also because of the void, right? It's also because of the void, because so much time off will force me to sit with the void. Spiritually, that void is really hard to be with, because you have to sort of look at it. You have to like think about like, you know, okay, is there an underlying feeling of misalignment in my life? Okay, I just did this gigantic thing, and I don't know how to celebrate it. So that's part of the void. Okay, so why don't I know how to celebrate what I've done? Why is what I've accomplished not enough for me? Why do I already have to be thinking about the next thing? So that like liminal space in between is really uncomfortable, because uncertainty is the theme of it. And uncertainty is really uncomfortable when you're someone who has made an entire life out of control, right? Control.
And this is like a sub part of it. Like I hear what you're saying. I'm picking it up. But something that kind of sticks out to me is you're saying like, I'm in this ivory tower. and I'm not happy and I'm lonely, I know you are a person who knows how to be alone. So I know that if you're saying lonely, that you have decided on that word, that there's a distinction between alone and lonely.
Yep.
And I'm very curious that, like, if you zoomed out a little bit, just a little bit out of just Harpo's life, but like just to kind of where the world is right now, why do you think that there is loneliness in your life?
Oh, that's such a good question. And it's interesting because like this is kind of like a thing that a lot of people are talking about right now, hey? I think like we have become more and more individualistic as a society. And the pandemic didn't help because we were all forced to go into our homes to like sort of leave the communal spaces that we occupied. This idea of third space was really challenged. Before, I think there was like, I don't know if this is true or not, but in my experience, I felt that there was less dichotomy before the pandemic. You had the workspace or the school space, you had the family internal sort of domestic space, and then you had like a communal space. I think that the first thing to go in the pandemic was the communal space. And so now you're sort of left with the dichotomy. And I personally don't really work in dichotomies at all. I need like more than two things, you know? So I find that like we've become a lot more individualistic. And I think that for me, the like being alone was really helpful and healing for a long time. And then it was like, okay, now I'm done. Like this feels good, but now it doesn't feel good anymore. So that's kind of why I spent 1 week in Calgary with some friends recently. I've known them, I know them, but this was like the first time that I was going to go and spend time with them. And before I was leaving, I was like, why are you leaving? Like, why are you going? Like, are you sure? And then when I got there, every single day was the best day that I've had
in a long time.
In a very long time.
Yeah.
We all stayed up till 4 o'clock every day because nobody wanted to go to sleep. And then we would all wake up and spring out of our beds because then we could all be together and we would just spend all day together, just laughing, cooking, eating, living communally. And I had a moment where I thought, none of my problems exist right now, not because I'm ignoring them, but because there is actually nothing to ruminate over.
Well, because there's love in the room.
Yeah.
Right. And I totally agree with what you're saying. Is like, you need the alone time, right? You need the space. You need to cultivate the sense of self, the trust with self. And then there gets to this point where it's like, how do I maneuver this in the real world with other people, right? Like, you're not like doing all the spiritual work to be alone. You're doing it so that you can be in community, right? But then I find that like a lot of the times when we do the work, it's like we almost get hyper vigilant in a different way and protective over like, oh, I don't do that. Oh, I protect my peace. These are my boundaries. Yeah. But it's like, well, like, yo, life is meant to be lived with each other.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then even if you're thinking about that third space, I was just telling Kev, like, I love going to certain coffee shops to work. And I went to one today and I wrote down everything I loved about it. It's large. There's a bunch of people who are creative. There's open space. There's so much noise. There's so much happening in there, right? And it's like, I don't think we were meant to live in like a 500 square foot place all alone and doing everything in there.
No, we weren't. And especially like I think about, I'm Punjabi. So I grew up with my mom, dad, grandma, grandpa. And then like every 5-ish years, we had a cousin come from India and live with us, right? I currently have.
I know those houses.
Right?
Yes.
And my dad's brother lived next door or 2 doors down. And my parents and my ancestors grew up in villages. Like it was communal. The doors were never locked. People came in and out. Now, I live in a 514 square foot apartment on the 7th floor in Yaletown all by myself. And I'm deeply disconnected from the way that I was raised and then also the way that my ancestors lived. And that is jarring. Like at first when I like was, you know, and I don't regret it at all because moving out for me as a brown girl was a big deal in my family because nobody had ever done that before. So, but what drove me to do that was the solitude, the intentional alone time, the space and time that I needed to focus and create and, you know, work on myself. But we're not individualist people. We're collectivist people. And I think that also like capitalism has just gotten so insane and survival mode has gotten deeper. this like very colonial patriarchal way of working has just gotten deeper and deeper, and we've just become so much more polarized as human beings that we're so spread out that it's like individualism is like a survival tactic almost.
You're like a slave to this. It's a big word, but it's like being a slave to a system.
Yes.
Right? Because even if you think about it, like what has power over you? How are you waking up and what are you doing? And then how are you spending the rest of your evening? And then it's clockwork, right?
Yeah.
And it's just, it is I feel like it can be very lonely. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, which is why I said to my parents recently, hey, can I come back, but not in your house? Can I come and live in the basement where we still have boundaries? I can lock the door when I need alone time, but I can come upstairs whenever I want.
Yeah.
And I can like be held by you, and we can cook together, and we can go into dad's garden together. I had a lot of resistance to like admitting that also. But after the Calgary trip, I was like, no, this is actually how I flourish. And now it's actually a wellness concern, because now when I'm alone, I'm like, okay, I don't think I'm well, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm not like, this is not the medicine that I need currently anymore.
Yeah. And it's also just like knowing yourself, right? Like, I think that I totally get what you're putting down when it comes to being a brown girl, doing that. I'm the first person in my lineage, either side, to live on her own. And it's just so crazy, because I remember the first time I went to go visit my friend, and my mom was like, can I stay at your house?
Yeah.
And I realized like what a gift I was able to give her. But then there comes this time where you're like, I don't think this serves me.
Right.
There's people who it serves them, you know what I mean? That living on their own, doing all that. But then it's like, I've had roommates and I've absolutely loved it, because it's like, it is nice to have that communal space in the living room, talking with each other, or like being with your family and just playing with the dogs, and like having like being together in nothingness is so important.
So important. We have a mutual friend named Amrita. She's a wonderful entrepreneur and coach. I used to go and stay with her when she lived on the Sunshine Coast, just off the coast of BC. And that was the first house in my entire life that didn't have like a television.
Yeah.
And, or a microwave really, but like didn't have a television. And it was so awkward for me, because like there was nothing like in my house, in my like immigrant household that's like living in survival mode, the television is the focal point.
Oh, duh.
Right?
Yeah.
You watch TV and you don't talk to each other. But then now,
and then you change the channel when it gets awkward.
Yeah. But like now these like Amrita's house or my friend's house in Calgary, even my friend, like when I hang out with my friend Asad at his place, when we're all together, the focal point is literally connection. Like we're all like we move from the couch to the floor to like the what do they call the like cushions, and like, or we'll move into the kitchen. Somebody will pour a glass of wine. Somebody will make a tea. It's just so nice. The focal point, being together. It's the connection.
Yes. You know, I haven't had a TV for 7 years.
Crazy, yeah.
Yeah.
I love that for you.
And people, like everyone, like everybody, my mom, my brothers, they're all like, what do? Do you just stare at the wall? And I'm like, sometimes. But like sometimes even staring at the wall is nice. Like I have a projector. Like everyone likes TV.
Yeah.
But I love when my friends come over or when my family's over, and it's just about actually spending time together. You know what I mean? Or watching the sunset change. And it's just like, I don't know. I totally get it.
Yeah.
So a lot of what you've been saying, and when I originally was like, yo, you got to come on the podcast, it has been about transition. And you're somebody who I know has transitioned a lot.
Yeah.
Right? Even in the ways that you're saying, like, okay, when I knew this was right, when I knew that was right. So what is your approach to transition and to transforming through transition?
Such a good question. Transitions for me reflect thresholds. And there's always a sense of like newness, and like a temporality. I know enough now, and I trust enough now that any transition, small, large, or medium, is just ushering me into something new. And it usually requires the ending of something, which is incredibly painful, and there's a grieving process. But transitions always remind me that like like there's like something's about to shift.
Mhm.
And now I have a ritual around it, actually. I feel like it's quite ritualistic for me now.
Yeah, in there you said something new and something's got to shift. You didn't say something is better on the way.
Yeah.
So I'm very, I would love if you double click on that.
Yeah.
Like, what about it is neutral and how do you stay neutral about it?
Well, I think like my spiritual practice tells me that literally everything is temporary and everything changes all the time. It's only our attachment to the thing that makes something better or worse, right? Life is a series of transitions. We age, we grow, we die, we form relationships, we let go of relationships. We're in one space over another. Like that's just what happens, right? I feel like I used to be the kind of person that used to be like, why is this happening? Why am I changing? All these kinds of things. But then I started to learn about liminal spaces and like how there's always like an in-between when the old world is crumbling and the new world is being formed. And those things actually happen simultaneously. When I started to see transitions like that, as opposed to black and white, where like this thing is ending, life sucks, I don't know what's going to happen next. And I started to approach it with a lot of like faith.
Sorry, honey.
It's okay.
I thought I put it on Do Not Disturb.
When I started to approach it with like a lot of faith and trust, right? My relationship with transitions just changed. I don't know if that answers your question, but
no, it does. The faith and trust. You know, something else I was thinking about when you were talking is I feel like there's so much that you and I have in common with our journeys. And you can ask anybody who's been my friend for a long time. I was always like a lost and found girl. Like I was always like feeling lost. Like, why are we here? We're aliens. Like it was really hard for me to ground myself on the earth. I think I've told you this before. Like I would have days where I would meditate for 3 hours and I would find it so hard to live here, to be here, to participate here, which is funny because as a young person, I was very like, rah, I love life, right? But I bring it back because the feeling that took me from lost to found was my faith. Right. It was trust. It was the belief that like if I'm here, there's purpose. Right. And I feel like there's nothing in life that has grounded me more than that. It's not subscribing to a specific religion. No. It's just I am of worth. If God made all of this and I am a tear of God, then I am worthy. Because it's like you take a piece of toilet paper off of the roll of toilet paper, it's still toilet paper, right? Like no one can mess with that. And then if I am here, there's a reason, right? So I'm very I'm not surprised at all that is what helps ground you. Yeah. And as you're saying all of that, there's like a recent life experience of mine that's like really alive and active for me right now that you're actually a part of. So I did coaching sessions with you and it was to arrive at a decision, essentially. I shared with you that I was feeling a little bit of resistance in my friendships. And, I shared with you that I didn't want to like go on this trip. And so I made the decision after like working with you, after being coached, to arrive at the decision that I wasn't going to go on this big trip with friends that I had had for 15 years. This group of friends was so intrinsic to my life. We did so much together. I saw the rest of my life with them. I was really attached to this like cohort of people, and then what like the meaning that I gave myself, right? So I made this decision shortly after a friendship broke out. Right? Like one of the friendships it dissolved. It wasn't aligned anymore. I still kept holding on to some of the other friendships in the group. And, it kind of went fine for a little while. And then eventually those friendships also started to falter. They started to become more and more disconnected. And in all of this, what I was really ignoring the entire time was that I had known for a very long time that these friendships needed to end. But I was holding on because the moving from where I was to where it would have taken me was far too scary, right? Like I didn't want to transition out of it. I didn't want to change. I was really resistant to change. I was also
quite certain that the uncertainty that would come from breaking these relationships would be something I probably can't handle. But I was forced into it. I had a big tower moment. I love to quote the, the tower card in tarot. I had a big tower moment. Eventually, those friendships, like currently as we stand, not active at all. Completely gone, totally dissolved. 15 years of friendship, completely like clean cut, done, right? I had so much pain around it. So much. I woke up in the middle of the night once sobbing, like wailing out loud. I've never had that before.
It's so painful to lose a long-term
so
friendship.
painful. I was literally like, I've had nights where I've like cried a little bit, but I like woke up, I was like full on sobbing, like I was awake. I just kept saying like, why would this happen to me? Like, why did you guys do this to me? I felt really abandoned. I felt really cut out. It was so much pain. But I started to grieve it, and I was like, okay, like this has happened. It's done. And then, I sort of just went with the flow with it, kept going. I was in Calgary. I keep citing this Calgary trip because it was very transformative. There was a moment when I was meditating one of the mornings, and I just started to cry again because I was like, oh, I get it. I get why that happened, because where I am right now is exactly where I'm supposed to be. And I couldn't have gotten here without all of that. Like all of that needed to crumble. At that time, the next chapter, the next phase, this newness was like nowhere to be found. I couldn't see it. I was like, I'm lonely. I've lost all my friends. I'm not deserving. I'm not worthy. I did something wrong. There's something inherently wrong with me. But I didn't even realize that ending was actually just a beginning.
Yeah.
And that there was like this like beautiful unfolding into the next chapter. And I'm not going to say that where I am right now is better. I'm not going to say that. It's just more aligned.
Yeah.
That's simply it. It's just more aligned. It's exactly where I'm meant to be. And I caught myself thinking, I want to hold on to this. I hope it never changes. And then I was like, nope, this will change. You will phase out. This beautiful week that you've had, you may never have it again. And even that is okay.
Yeah.
Right?
100%. You know what? There's the true grief, because it is hard and it is sad and it is grief. And then on top of that, there's all of the, what am I making this mean about me? What are the stories that I'm telling myself? And then the fear of, okay, well, I have to grasp onto the next thing. And if I don't grasp onto this, then I'm going to let go of this. And then it's going to make all those things that I thought it meant about me true. And I think that I just think the transitions of friendships over time is one of the hardest and most transformative journeys ever, especially as women. And the reason I'll make that caveat is because I feel like as women, I know as women, we just have deeper relationships in the sense of they're soulful in a different way. And we come from a gen where it's like, forever, you know what I mean? And so you get bought into this idea of forever, and like foreverness is, if you're not doing things forever, then something's wrong with you.
Yeah, I mean, we grew up on Sex and the City and Cheater Girls. Like that's what we grew up on.
Yes.
Right?
So, and I love that. And I love that you appreciate you sharing that, especially if it's alive for you. But what is something, not asking you, I hate the question of like, what's next for you? But like, what is something that you are trying to cultivate into your life in the next season?
I am trying to really be intentional, grounded, and mindful in choice, if that makes sense. So for the last 5 years of my life, I have not applied for anything. Everything has come to me. All my positions, all my roles, everything has come to me. I have simply been a vessel in a container, and I have simply just been open enough and focused and aligned. But nothing has really come to me with like any force, for example. I'm reminding myself of that and reminding myself that I actually have choice in the next chapter. The reason I say that is because now with this newfound space and time, I catch myself being like over engineering, right? To be like, what if I did this? What if I did this? What if I lived here? What if I lived there? What if I spent like 2 hours a week doing this? And it's like, oh, well, like, okay, but none of that actually exists right now. Like you have no idea what life is going to look like September, October. So all of this over engineering is like, you don't need to do, but I have choice in how the next chapter of my life actually gets built. And that feels really nice, but also at the same time is really new.
Well, you need space for choice.
Yes. And so I'm like reminding myself of like the agreements, the principles that I've set, which is we're not going to make any choices yet, but there will come a time when you get to exercise your right to make a choice. So that's something that I'm really feeling into. And I would say that my like guiding like lighthouse moment right now, I think, is like discovery. Like I get to discover new ways of being. There's new possibilities. I don't have to keep building the world in the same way that I have been. I'm allowed to change. I'm allowed to do things differently. And my life is allowed to look really different. Like I might move, I might do something, I might change everything. Like it might be completely flipped, and all of that is okay.
Yeah, 100%. You know, when you say that, I think like how you're like, oh, these friends are aligned, right? It's your expression of self will change over time. You know what I mean? Right now, I love biking. I never cared for biking last year. You know what I mean? I didn't care at all, right? So it's just like your expression of how you want to be and your beingness will change over time. And that expression doesn't fit into old boxes, right? And sometimes you can go to boxes where you're like, okay, a bit of my expression fits here, and that's okay, that serves me. And other times there's boxes you're like, not enough of my expression fits here.
Yeah. I'm really, really working on not rushing. I have a really hard time with that. So I'm really trying not to rush anything. Urgency.
Yeah.
Oh, I am unlearning urgency right now.
Yeah.
It sucks unlearning it. But
you need urgency when you need urgency.
Yeah.
But right now you need to look at the freaking water and you just need to be.
Yeah, I just need to be. So that's where I'm at. It's so hard, but that's where I'm at. You
got this. Is there anything that you want to share that you feel like you're like, oh, it's just inside of me and I want to let it out?
I don't know. I feel like what I would like to say to people who are listening is that you said something earlier about like, you know, there's so much pressure to like subscribe to the thing and to sign up for the thing and do this and do that, and to enroll yourself in this and that. I just don't think that that is the way that we're meant to live as human beings. If you feel called to something and it feels aligned and you want to do it, that's fine. But I feel like presence is my God. I always say this. So is music, but presence is my God. And I feel that like in most experiences in life, if you are not present, I think all experiences in life, if you're not present, you're missing the point.
Yeah.
So I don't feel that like, again, like I have been in such beautiful privileged spaces of leadership and impact, and all of them came to me when I was present and not even paying attention or seeking. And so I think like if you're like, I'm a highly ambitious woman learning softness right now, and softness is a superpower. And I have not felt that way or learned that ever. But right now I'm really anchoring into that softness can be power. So that's what I would like to say is like, you like, even if you listen to this and you feel inspired, you don't actually have to get up and go do anything. Just like marinate in it. Just marinate in the thing and just allow yourself to be and allow the thing to arise naturally.
I love that. Be sourdough. Right?
Be sourdough, oh my God.
Just be sourdough.
Literally.
And then you're delicious. You know?
There you go. You gotta germinate.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me. I love hanging out with you. I will say yes to anything that you ever say to ask me to do or tell me to do.
I tell you to do.
Jump off a bridge, Harpo.
No.
Okay, Sue.
No.
If you're going to film it, if Kevin's going to film it, I'll do it. If he's going to make a fire edit, I'll do it.
I think we should just cut there.